Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. And you may find it a little bit perplexing why I'm adorned by so much black and red ROG hardware. Well, the boys over at Bitspower have been working on some full cover motherboard water blocks for a little while. And they're not a new thing. There are other manufacturers that have done a similar type of thing in the past. Bitspower started doing it with the ITX boards. Because with the ITX boards, where they are so small, it meant that you could do the chipset, the CPU and the raised MOSFET blocks all in one go. Now we've had chipset and MOSFET water blocks before, so for argument's sake they would cool your MOSFETs around the top and your chipset, and if it was further on down the board, sometimes they kind of come down and swoop in. We used to get like Northbridge, Southbridge and chipset blocks, but these ones are actually to cool the CPU as well. So you have one input and outputs that keeps all of your cooling nice and tidy, and then everything on the motherboard is done. So your chipset, MOSFET, CPU, everything. And in case you didn't know, this is actually the full current Asus Republic of Gamers motherboard range. Starts with the Impact, goes on to the Gene, then it goes up to the Ranger and the Hero. Just with this block, by the way, this block fits the Ranger and the Hero together, which is why I've got the Hero out, but it does fit both. Then you move on to the Formula. There won't be a Z97 Extreme board. It moves straight onto the Republic of Gamers Asus Rampage 5 Extreme. Now that is the lineup. So that is the full lineup as it is at the moment. I don't think we're going to get a Formula Rampage. Well, there is still some kind of like to-ing and fro-ing at the moment. Nothing's been confirmed. We don't know whether we're going to get a Rampage Gene this time around or not. But we shall see, because effectively this does such a good job in the first place. Why would you then want to, have a 2011 chip on it when really the M80X sort of stuff is generally for gaming? I suppose if you wanted to make a smaller workstation and stuff, the options are there. But anyway, so we've got all of the water blocks. And I will show you the Hero and the Ranger fitted, but I've just got the Hero out for this one. We've got all of the water blocks, we've got all of the motherboards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get busy and get these all fitted, and then I'll bring you back for a close look of every single one of these boards. Okay then peeps, so when what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the Rampage installation, because I'm not going to show you every board, but they're all fairly similar anyway, so you can kind of use it and adapt it. But when we have a look at the box, and I've got the camera on the desk, which is why it's all kind of arse about face. When you open it up, you are greeted with a lot of different packages, and I'm not going to bore you by opening them all, but you can see we've got all the bits and bobs, so I'm going to get all this sorted. Okay, so what you end up with is your selection of parts, and if I lay these out, essentially what you end up with are a load of individual parts that all get linked up by the plastic topper, and the plastic topper goes on, and you can see that you've got all the little channels and the links, and it links it all together. So you only have one inlet and outlet on the top, but it links up your MOSFETs, your CPU, and with the Rampage, it's the only one that has a block for a chipset, because the other blocks, it's just a basic heatsink with a large kind of cover array for the top section. The Rampage does need this to be cooled, because this is there is a heat source underneath this. But the others, where it's just like the Z97 chipsets, they don't necessarily need a water block going down there. So this one is the odd one out. Obviously, where this is the flagship one as well. It's the reason why I chose to do it. But I'm going to work my way through it. Now I've done all of the other ones to, so I'm not going to be messing around on camera and stuff like that. But what I would say is make sure that you go through the instructions quite carefully. Give them a read. Don't do the man thing. Give them a proper read. Don't be afraid to make sure stuff's going. Give things a little check and stuff like that. So don't, just get in there. Take your time. If you've done water cooling and stuff before, like I have, I'd still give yourself, you know, a good hour or more, just to be able to, you know, not rush yourself. But what you're going to need is you're going to need a selection of screwdrivers, depending on your motherboard. I do end up using this slightly finer fillets for most of my stuff, especially when I'm doing water blocks. These seem to fit the smaller screws, but have yourself some other ones to hand. You're going to need some scissors, because you are going to have to cut up the thermal pads for your MOSFET and stuff. So these can be quite handy. You know, get yourself some decent scissors, and you may want to think about thermal paste as well. So what I need to do now is I need to drop a CPU in this board so it will all sit straight. Yeah, so I'm going to just get on with that. Right, in the kits you do get a selection of O-rings, and these are going to be for if you ever did want to replace the O-rings on the blocks that you've got. So keep those for future use. They do give you some Allen keys as well, because a lot of the bolt bits that you're going to need to put on have got Allen heads, so they've got those for you as well. And then your selection of screws and bits and bobs, and all your washers are here. The little baby washers are for the ones that you have to bolt into the back, and the slightly bigger ones are going to be for the CPU block. But what we'll do is we'll start off by whizzing all the screws off. This top bit on this one will get reused on the blocks. They reuse the back plates with the like the Maximus Formula. They reuse the whole of the rear section. With the other ones, there's little MOSFETs on the back of some of the other boards as well. So any of those, they actually get reused, which is kind of a good idea. Obviously keeps the water block prices down. Right, so that's all off. We'll, this is going to have thermal pads on. So you need to keep hold of the thermal pads. As you can see, that one's got some thermal pad on the back, because there are some components around there. So you need to keep hold of that bit, because that bit is going to get reused. It's just the black screws on this one that we need to remove. The two silver ones are for the wireless unit. We do need to remove the black ones, because that's the large kind of MOSFET area heatsink that we need to pop off. Right, so all of those are off. And that's lifted clear now. Jolly good. Right, so that's those parts. As you can see, that's your main chipset block, and then the large one. What we also need to do is we need to remove the 3 screws here for the little baby chipset block as well, which is just underneath the CPU. Don't forget to be careful with all your screws. Keep hold of them, because you never know when you might need to be putting stuff back to normal. Right, so we've got the board fully stripped out. We've got the MOSFETs and the chokes at the top. Then we've got the little chipset area here. This section, the big section down this side, it's pretty much just a cover. There is a heat pipe which brings it up, but it's quite a meaty looking bit of kit, but it's not actually in contact with any massive heat sources on this side anyway, so I don't think there's anything going over here at all. So there's only going to be like the down the middle and the chipset that we need to worry about. But like I said, we need to keep hold of these, because you never know when you might want to sell your board or put it back on air, or you never know what you're going to need. So what we have to do is, on this there is another, so right, we've got those 4 on that. In fact, there's no contact points on this for this bit where the heatsink was. If you have a look, it's just bits of plastic, so it is just a tarty cover. Really, it's not actually in contact with anything. It's not actually got any cooling properties. It's just to break up the look of the board and have the little ROG logo on it. So this section, as you can see, there's no contact points at the top. It just gives us a nice point for everything to kind of link up. So we need to fit that. Now, what you do need to do is make sure you put thermal paste on this. But we're not setting this up to be like fully tested water cool. We're just doing this as a way through, but I am going to put a little dab of thermal compound on there. Is actually a bit too much. We've put a little dab of thermal compound on there. I've got Arctic MX4, but the Noctua NTH1 is something that I have in abundance here as well. But if we put this over here like this, we can flip round. What we need to do is line everything up. Now there are some little screws that come with plastic washers, so get one started so that the threads on it will help you, and then get the other side on so that you can get them lined up. Right, so we've got the 4 on the back. I'm just going to make sure that I've nipped them all up. And then when we fling round, we can see that we've got the heatsink area on, and like the cover. I quite like the way these cover these up. And we've got the chipset side of it on as well. But like I said, it's not even, it doesn't line up with anything around here either. So I was just making sure, because it's got a little plastic thread there, but that's just to lift it off. Later on these will get covered. What we do need to do is, now we've got this one, which I believe will come around here. Yep. So what we need to do is get some of our thermal pads, and we need a bit for one section, we need a bit for the top. So what I'm going to do, just to make it a bit easy, is pretty much chop this one in half. Now when you take these apart, let me just, right, when you get these, there's 2 lots of plastic on these. There's a thin section and a thicker section. Make sure you take both lots of plastic off. See that's the skinny one coming off. And then there's also another one at the back, which is a thicker section of plastic. You'd be amazed how many times I have changed water blocks and found out that people have left the plastic on. One time I did it, and I did find the plastic had melted because it was on a hot section of a graphics card. when you are fitting these, try not to pull them. They are quite elastic, so you can stretch them. You can try not to do that. Just get them set on there. Right, now they're relatively sticky, but what we need to do is get our next two screws ready, get the washers on them. So that's now that done. Got that one, that one. Now we need to do the middle bit. This is actually relatively simple. Now, your thermal paste, I'm just going to stick a bit in the middle because we're not going to be powering it up. But you can sort your thermal paste out yourself and do it whatever way that you like. With the 2011 socket, I personally, because it's such a big die, I personally go for the spread method normally. But where we're not going to be powering this up, I'm not going to do it, so I'm trying to keep things quick. Right, so we've got our stands on. When you come to fitting this, all you ever need to remember is the Bitspower logo needs to go at the bottom and then everything will line up. Just drop that on. Get the thread started with the spring as well. Now when you come to tighten these up, there isn't any kind of official tightness. I normally go as tight as it will let me. Eventually the spring will just close up and it won't let you go anymore. Just try and make sure that they're all roughly the same sort of tightness. The 2011 stuff is designed to be quite tight anyway. Right, so we've got those on. Next thing that we need to do is the fittings, and you can see that we've got the thread on one side and then you've got the O-ring on the top. All we need to do is just buzz them all in. We've got 6 fittings. It's pretty damn simple what they want you to do. When it comes to how tight, again, for these, finger tight, you don't need to be getting any spanners or anything like that out because you'll just crack the acrylic. There's an O-ring there anyway, and eventually when they do start to get tight, you'll feel the O-ring fighting against you. And then there's just this top section, and essentially what this top section does is you can see all the fittings, it literally links everything up. So and just for sod's law, and I'm going to leave this in as well, just for sod's law, the first one of these that I've done where the bloody Bitspower logo needed to be at the top. Every other one, it's been at the bottom. So at least you know with the Z97 ones, the logo needs to be at the bottom. Okay, so we've spun it round. The reason why I, with this one, it was so new, literally Bitspower just knocked this kit out quickly for me and sent it out. They hadn't actually made the instructions for it yet, it was so new. Which is why I did all the other ones first. But this is the only one where you've had to have the Bitspower logo at the top. So that's just, you know, it's a slight oversight. But when you go to put it all together, everything should line up anyway. And now we've done it. All of the bits and bobs do line up. So once you've got it all there, we've got everything kind of all nice and tight how we wanted it. Pretty much all you have to do is be brave and start pushing on the O-rings, but you do have to make sure that they go in. I was having a bit of difficulty then getting the top cover on, and what I found out is that the bottom cover, when I fitted it, was only like a smidgen off the connection. The threads weren't quite in the middle, so what I had to do is loosen it off a bit, let everything line itself up, and now I'm just nipping these back up again. So the tolerances are very, very small, but obviously if you've got like a mil out this end, it's going to be a lot out this end, but we've got it all on now. So it was user error, it was me. I hadn't done it right in the first place. Right, so we get those on, bosh that on. And that's it. And then essentially what we have is a inlet here and an outlet here. So in goes all the way around, then it comes back out. So it's actually a really nice, simple, keeps your for your chipset, your MOSFETs and your CPU. You've only got one in and out. I don't believe in DRAM cooling. It's utterly pointless. It's like hard drive cooling. It's just not necessary. I think it adds, you know, too much clutter. So you can have an inlet here, the outlet, sorry, inlet here, then the outlet, which you can have come down to, you know, 1 or 2 of your graphics cards, depending on what you have. And then that's it. Keeps everything nice and simple, little as hose as possible. And let's face it, that does look the kahunas. Anyway, for the eagle-eyed amongst you that did notice, I've just fitted the top like bracing and the where the tin pad was before. I had forgotten to fit it before, so I just whizzed the screws out, put it on, and it's all in there, all nice and tight. Everything's all done now. So up close, we'll start off with the baby and we'll work our way up. This is the impact block, and as you can see, we've got the chipset bit down here, but it has got this riser card here, which is where all the MOSFETs and all the extra power and everything is. So it's the one that's, you know, it's the one that's the most different. Also, this one doesn't link a load of bits together because the block is actually all technically together anyway. But that's obviously, again, just an input and output, so it keeps things extra tidy. You're only going to have one little hose going in and out of this. With a lot of the graphics cards nowadays, the CPU can be the hardest bit that you want to cool. So if you want to break from the AIOs and all that type of stuff, this way you can actually keep your chipset cool and you can keep your MOSFET area cool with minimal airflow, because you're not going to need gallons of airflow to keep all of this going. And I think it does look the part. I did do a video on the Z87 impact block, so it's just nice to see the new Z97 one done in the same kind of way as well. Really well engineered. It certainly does look the part, and obviously it is still quite compact as well. Next up we have the Genie, however you want to put it. The area down here, there are little, if I try and bring you around so that you can have a look, just in here, you can just see it. There's a little drill hole there for, there it goes, it's focused. It's got a drill hole there for an LED. Sadly they don't come in the box, but you can chuck one in. Obviously you can put whatever colour that you want in there. It's a 3mm LED. I did think it would have been nice if Bitspower had sent a white one with all of them, or even a red one. I think a white one would have worked with the logo better. And I think that's something they probably should have added in all the boxes. But as you can see you've got the CPU block underneath, and you've got the long MOSFET cooler, and then the top just ties it all together. And like I've said before, the reason why I like it is it means you've just got a single inlet and an output, FCB full cover block, single inlet and an output, does all the hard bits for you, may make bleeding a little difficult, or more difficult than usual, but again, it just keeps things very simple, very tidy. And I personally really like the look of these, especially on the smaller two boards. Moving on to the Hero, it does, on the product number, say HR, which is Hero Ranger. So this block will fit the Hero and the Ranger, so you don't have to worry. This is another one where, hidden away around here, you can see just there the little drill hole for the LED. so that you can light this section up. Again, it doesn't come with it, which I was a little bit disappointed by, but it at least gives you the chance that you can buy yourself a 3mm LED, and it's quite close to the outside, so you'll be able to tuck it around the back and you won't have to worry, or you can wire it into one of the LED headers down the bottom, like the LED power LED or something. It's completely up to you. Covers the PCI Express area quite nicely, keeps everything kind of tidy, understated, a little bit stealthy. But then again, on the top you've got that top block which links everything else up. Now you can see the underneath of these. I did ask for clear, just for the reasons that it would mean I could show you what was underneath, but you can get the kits in red and black for all of the boards as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Moving on to the flagship Z97 board, the Formula, because there won't be an Extreme. If you want an Extreme now, you need to buy the Rampage, and they're not doing a Z97 Extreme. 3 PCI Express slots, triple SLI, plenty there for most people, but it's obviously best suited for 2 cards because of the triple slot spacing. Again, you can light the Bitspower logo up if you want, but it's a 3mm LED and it doesn't come with it. This one's obviously got a much larger area here. The Z97 chipset itself has got that alley block underneath, but there is no active cooling with any of the water cooling or anything like that. Round the back, it does utilise the original backplate, which is awesome. The top again links everything together, keeps everything all tied in nice and tidy. Single input and an output, nice spacings on there as well, will help keep your hosing nice and tidy. Could actually help keep rigid hosing really nice and tidy as well. But it's again available with a black or a red top. Keeps the out the way for the memory really nicely, keeps everything out of the way for the graphics really nicely. This is probably out of the Z97 ones, probably my favourite one. Last but not least, the Rampage 5 Extreme. This is the headline act, the flagship of the entire ROG range. This one does have an active chipset cooler going in down here. It's probably why they've not done the light up option on this one at all. It's the odd one out in that respect as well. Again, it does cover up where it can do on the in between the PCI Express, but there's so many slots on this. You've only got a couple of fingers coming across. It's slightly different layout with the top block as well, because obviously there's a secondary thing going down here. I did think it was actively cooling these sections, but this is literally just for your chipset, so it comes down and around. But it is really nice that it links everything together. So you've got your CPU in the middle, MOSFETs at the top, and then your chipset at the bottom, and it cools all of that with just a single input and an output there. This does keep things epically tidy. Again, it's available in black and red, but I personally think, and I quite like the idea, especially with all the bits of red on this, I quite like the idea of having the clear one, but with red or black coolant going through it, just to help break things up a bit. I think if you had a giant, massive red on this, I think it would be a little bit too much. You can obviously light the CPU block up underneath as well, so you can start playing around with effects if you wanted to. If you had red cooling going through it, you could light the CPU up and help light all this up. Again, if you've got red coolant, don't put red lights in it. Put white lights in it to highlight the red, otherwise you'll just bleach everything else out. The white will actually help pick out other colours on the board as well. But it's probably the beefiest of all of them. But I do really like the look of it, and I think it's a masterstroke by Bitspower to have, you know, tried to do something like this, because let's face it, it's only really that top section that ties it all together, and it saves all of that extra hose, and it just makes everything, you know, just so much more classy. Okay then peeps, so that is them all laid out with all of the blocks. Now people are instantly going to be going, oh, where's the testing? But let's face it, it's a CPU block, it's a chipset block on the Rampage and the MOSFET. With the others, it's just your CPU block and your MOSFET blocks. Now, if we'd have gone into testing all of these, I would have been doing it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's always very dependent on the equipment that you're going to be using it with as well. Just a different radiator can make a huge difference, different fans and all that type of stuff. So even if I gave you results, it can be immensely different with your results. And all of the hardcore water coolers out there know, really, in the be all and end all, it doesn't really fucking matter, because you buy stuff like this for the aesthetics. You're not going to be nipping and griping about, you know, going between different blocks and stuff, because there's nothing out there on the market like this. And essentially what it does is allow you to tie the whole kind of CPU cooling area with the MOSFET and everything all in with that tidy looking block. It's actually very similar to some of the custom projects that have come out recently. I know Nate at E22 did one with bloody bits all over the place, and it's just a very, very nice way of tying it all together. So that's why I've chosen not to, you know, go in and test them all, because essentially there's nothing really to compare it with other than stock testing. Now your MOSFETs, if you're really, really raging your overclocks, then it can help keep your MOSFET slightly cooler, but it's only really going to extend the longevity of your rig. It's not necessarily going to make your overclocks any better on the MOSFET side of things. Your CPU, again, it's going to depend on what voltage you're putting through your CPU, your overclocks that you're pushing for. But if there's one thing that I've learned with the Z97 stuff, is that essentially you can, with a decent air cooler, you can normally get the best out of your chip as long as you're sticking within safe voltages. So when you move over onto water cooling with stuff like this, essentially what you're going to be doing is either dropping your temperatures down dramatically, or if you're anything like me, you're going to be able to have a nigh on silent running rig. Because if you set things up properly, you can keep your CPU sort of temperatures, again depending on your volts and all that type of stuff, you can keep them below air cooling or AIO cooling levels. But the most important thing is you can have those fans running much, much lower, which can end up meaning that you've got a much quieter rig. And for me, that's personally what it's all about. Also with water cooling as well, and this is the reason why I've put the effort into blocking up all of these, is it's about aesthetics. There are people out there that will have like a CPU block, and then the hose will go off to a radiator, and it will come into a graphics card, and it will go off to another radiator. Now, if you want to go about it that way, then fair enough, but you're going to end up with spaghetti junction. And for the most of us, especially the old school water coolers, the way that we like to do things is we like to keep things very tidy. So sometimes a single loop can be better, and not jumping in between radiators can make, you know, sometimes you might be lucky to get 2, maybe 3 degrees difference by doing that. And in the grand scheme of things, especially if you've got a massive side window, you're not necessarily going to want that. So what Bitspower have done with this is, by only having that single inlet and the outlet, you could technically have a your CPU and your MOSFETs being cooled, and then you're only really going to have that one in and out, and then down to a graphics card. It's going to keep things very, very tidy. And obviously the least amount of hose that you see possible is, in my eyes, is the best way to go about it. If you're going for rigid and stuff, it's going to mean you've got less bends and stuff to think about, or less fittings if you're going to go the industrial kind of route, where you make all your bends with the your 90 degrees and you do your bends that way. So it could end up being a lot cheaper for you as well. But I think this is absolutely brilliant. I think there's a lot of people are going to be trying to mimic this with their own ranges now, and I think it's probably a step towards, you know, like the next step forward, because obviously CPU cooling was done yonks ago, and then, you know, we moved on to chipsets and stuff like this. But now, kind of having them all together, I think it's going to become very popular. And these tops, especially on the Rampage, it does really look so nice as well. I know people are going to be saying, because I can already hear it, they're going to be saying about like the X99 Deluxe and stuff, but the plastic cover might hinder that. But this is the entire ROG range. Don't forget, the Hero and the Ranger can be done with the same block. Although I have blocked up the Hero here, I've kind of run out of time, but it will fit the Ranger as well. So as long as you couple this all up with a decent water cooling set, and by a decent water cooling set I think if you've gone to this kind of level and you're kind of thinking about a single graphics card as well, especially if you're running one of the warmer ones, you should be thinking about kind of a 360 millimeter, which is a triple 120 radiator. That's the kind of level that you want to be going for. Obviously, with the multiple blocks, there are also people going to be shouting about pumps and the likes of that, but as long as you've got a decent pump, you're really not going to worry. The DDCs are very good, and obviously the D5 is my own personal favourite. I run a D5 with 2 radiators, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks on a daily basis, and that's running on the second. There's 5 options for you to turn it up, with 5 being a maximum. I run mine on 2, and my temperatures are absolutely fine, and it just means that the rig is kind of inaudible. So as long as you've got a decent pump like that, you can still back it off and you'll be able to run these fine. So just take that under advisement. This was obviously just a way for me to show you the way these things look, because they look the absolute bee's knees, and to calm your nerves about, you know, maybe needing dual pumps and, you know, am I going to need, you know, a 420 radiator to cool a flipping Pentium K and a, you know, I don't know, a 260 or a 770 or something. No, you're not. Just calm your jets. But just remember, you can't do water cooling on the cheap. So if you're thinking about going down that area, don't try and scrimp and save and, you know, use some crappy ancient pump. If you're going to do it properly, spend your time, do it tidy, and at the end of the day you'll end up with an amazing looking rig. And it really, it's almost like painting. The more prep that you put in and the more planning that you put in, the better product that you end with the end of it. Now, please do keep in mind that my thoughts on water cooling are my own thoughts, and there's many different things, but when it comes to aesthetics, it's all down to your point of preference. So I'm just sharing my point of preference, and at the end of the day, I'm here, you're watching the video, I'm trying to, you know, tell you what I would do and what I would want to do with it. You can just take that under advisement, or you can go down your own route. At the end of the day, if you want to have spaghetti junction because that's what you want to, you know, your rig to look like, that's completely down to you. But the epic Bitspower range, absolutely love these things. I think they're going to be falling off the shelves. I need to find out, because I've not heard if any retailers are going to be picking these up in the UK yet, but I sure as hell will be hoping they will do. And I'm certainly, if I do hear about it, I'll probably even post price links in the bottom for you. But epic job, Bitspower, absolutely chuffing, love these. I think you're going to be seeing quite a bit more Bitspower stuff in the not too distant future. But anyway, for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with the entire ROG motherboard range out.